A very good evening to one and all present here today physically and who have joined us online as well. And a very warm welcome to the celebrations of 6th Annual Day of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. On behalf of IBBI family, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to our honorable guest on the dais. As a token of our gratitude and respect, we would like to present plant saplings, which is a symbol of prosperity and growth, to our honorable guest on the dais. To begin with, may I request Shri Ravi Mittalji, Chairperson IBBI, to please welcome Shrimati Nirmala Sitharaman Madam with a small memento as a token of our gratitude. May I please request Chairperson Sir to present memento to Shri Ramalingam Sudhakarji. May I please request Chairperson Sir to present memento to Shri Ashok Kumar Gupta. Thank you, dignitaries. I would like to extend a warm welcome to members of Governing Board of the IBBI, Honorable President and members of National Company Law Tribunal and National Company Law Appellate Tribunal, members and experts of Insolvency Law Committee, IBBI's advisory committees, technical committees, and working groups, senior officers from Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Department of Economic Affairs, Ministry of Law and Justice, and other ministries and departments, chairmen and managing directors of insolvency professional agencies, insolvency professional entities, information utility, registered value organizations, our registered insolvency professionals and our registered valuers, and all other learned professionals and participants present here today physically and who have joined us online. Greetings of the day to one and all. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed an honor to have you all today with us. Without further ado, may I call our esteemed guest on the dais to light the lamp. Ladies and gentlemen, today's event is dedicated to completion of 6 years of establishment of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. Let's join together to celebrate the landmark journey of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016 and the IBBI. To begin with, shall I call upon Shri Ravi Mittal, Chairperson IBBI, to deliver the welcome address.
Honorable Finance Minister, Honorable Chairman, President NCLT, Honorable Chairperson, Competition Commission of India, my colleague Jayanti ji, members NCLT, senior officers of IBBI and other organizations, resolution professionals, friends, ladies and gentlemen. IBBI was established on October 1, 2016, and we have completed 6 years of our organization. So on this occasion, when we complete our 6 years and we are celebrating our annual day, I welcome all of you to this program, to this function. IBBI does 4-5 functions. The first and the most important function that IBBI does is to regulate the insolvency process. In this regard, we have issued 18 regulations since we have been set up. We have also put up 81 amendments in the past 6 years since our inception. And in the last year, that is since the last annual day, we have issued 20 amendments to the regulations. This only shows that we keep pace with the market, and whatever the market responds, we try to keep pace with that. We also regulate insolvency professionals. Today we have about 4,000 recognized insolvency professionals, and we also have 100 insolvency professional entities. Recently, we have also allowed insolvency professional entities to do the work of resolution professionals. This has happened only 2-3 days back. We have also been empowered to register valuers. So about 5,000 valuers have also been registered by IBBI, and 16 valuers organizations have also been registered by us in the last 5-6 years. Another function that we do is we organize training programs, workshops to keep our registered valuers, our registered RPs, IPEs up to date. So, and we also organize advocacy programs for all our stakeholders. Since our inception, we have organized about 1,000 such programs. And in the last 1 year, since the last annual day, we have organized about 180 such programs. We also do some research, and we try to disseminate information about the insolvency process. We issue a quarterly newsletter almost every quarter, and I am happy that our quarterly newsletter is very received by the entire insolvency stakeholders. We also issue books, research books. So about 10 books we have issued, and in the last 1 year we have issued 2 books. Today also we will be issuing a book. So last 1 year has been very eventful for us. COVID has almost finished, and now I believe that we have started functioning in a normal way. We hope that whatever problems had happened during the last 2 years because of COVID will now go away, and we will fulfill the aspirations of the government when it set up IBC and also set up IBBI. I again welcome all the dignitaries on the stage and in the room here. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your welcoming remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, to commemorate its establishment, the IBBI has instituted an annual day lecture series. It is our privilege to have with us Shri Ashok Kumar Gupta, Chairperson, Competition Commission of India, to deliver this year's first annual day lecture. Sir has had an illustrious career of 40 years in public service, spanning across sectors from industry, finance, health to defense production. Prior to joining the Commission, Sir has held several key positions in the central government, including as Secretary to the Government of India in the Department of Defense Production. Sir, we extend a warm welcome to you and request you to kindly address the audience.
Honorable Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji, Honorable President, National Company Law Tribunal, Shri Ramalingam Sudhakar ji, Chairperson IBBI, Shri Ravi Mittal ji, whole-time member IBBI, Shri Jayant Prasad, esteemed ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon. It's my privilege to be here at the 6th annual day of IBBI. I would like to thank Shri Ravi Mittal, Chairperson IBBI, for inviting me to be a part of the commemoration of what marks a watershed in the history of economic reforms in India. At the outset, I congratulate the chairpersons and members of IBBI for their exemplary leadership in shaping the insolvency and bankruptcy regime in India. Any reform measure is as strong as the institutional framework that undergirds its implementation. IBBI, within a short span of 6 years, has achieved extraordinary success in creating and continuously strengthening that framework for enforcing the IBBI, for enforcing the IBC, a much needed reformist step, albeit in the face of many uncertainties. The regulator has navigated hitherto uncharted territory with its nimble, focused, and resolute efforts. What we have witnessed in the last 6 years is speed, agility, nuance, and constant calibrations to make this historic code meet its purpose. My heartiest congratulations to all those who, through their contributions, have enriched the stupendous journey of IBBI thus far. The economic reforms in India set in motion in the early 90s were motivated by the economic needs of the nation of higher growth, efficiency, and competitiveness. Underlying the wide-ranging reforms was the fundamental construct of replacing central planning with markets, which, through their invisible hands, were believed to bring about efficiency in resource allocation, providing a decisive push to the overall growth frontier. At the same time, there was a recognition of the possibility that in certain circumstances, unfettered market forces may fail to deliver desired outcomes. Economic regulators were thus instituted to sit between the states and markets to address market failures and remove obstacles to entry and operation. The focus was largely on unlocking and promoting competition across sectors for achieving productive, allocative, and dynamic efficiency. The Competition Act 2002 was enacted with the overarching aim to prevent practices having adverse effect on competition, to promote and sustain competition in markets, and to ensure freedom of trade carried on by other participants in markets. The Competition Commission of India enforces the Act to ensure that entry is not unduly restricted owing to strategic barriers created by large incumbents and that they can compete on merits. Competition, however, is not only about free entry and level playing field, it is also about freedom of exit. Threat of entry is the market's mechanism for disciplining market power. Entry barriers, on the other hand, insulate incumbents from potential competition. When entry is known to be difficult and costly, it curbs the incentive and ability of enterprises to shift resources in response to market signals, thereby curbing the dynamism that competitive markets require. Hurdles to exit similarly make resources stay longer in existing firms instead of being relocated for more efficient use. Thus, barriers to exit, like barriers to entry, weaken the competitive process, which act to relocate resources from one market or firm to another according to changing conditions. As market circumstances change, technologies evolve, new business models outcompete old ways of doing business. Some firms thrive, some languish, and some fail. Failure is an inevitable outcome of market-driven competitive rivalry. By providing a credible, transparent, and time-bound market mechanism for resolution of insolvency wherever possible and easy exit where required, the IBC addresses the fear of failure, which otherwise could act as an entry deterrent and dampen risk-taking ability. In a way, entry and exit are interlinked. Facilitating entry without easy exit avenues cannot meaningfully help the cause of competition. IBC complements the Competition Act and constitutes that critical building block which completes the legislative architecture India needed to harness the full potential of markets for growth and efficiency. While we had a patchwork of insolvency laws, IBC provided a modern and comprehensive framework for professionalizing the insolvency landscape, maximizing the value of stressed assets, and easing the closure of unviable businesses. The objectives of past initiatives and legislations were limited and confined to the recovery of bad debts, without much consideration to restoration and rehabilitation of the corporate debtor, or aiming for minimizing waste and preserving resources and jobs for economic growth, including scarce entrepreneurship capital. As a result, the macroeconomic and large systemic and behavioral changes were not reckoned to be important long-term objectives, and emphasis was on short-term measures to effect recovery of debts from companies. IBC became an important milestone in the evolution of economic reforms in the country, which made the insolvency resolution a market-based mechanism, balancing the interest of all stakeholders. As the Supreme Court in one of the IBC cases observed, and I quote, "The defaulter's paradise is lost. In its place, the economy's rightful position has been regained," unquote. Overall, by releasing locked up resources and putting them to more efficient and productive use, IBC-led resolution and insolvency process is meant to ensure optimum utilization of scarce economic resources while also smoothing the process of creative destruction with greater competitive fervor. However, as we know, translating theory into practice has its own challenges. There are many factors, not all of which can be accounted for a priori. As fellow regulators, it is not difficult to imagine the enormity of the task for IBBI, who hit the ground running. Their journey started with some very complex cases of large distressed assets which had to be handled with dexterity, alongside putting in place the processes and building the ecosystem. What I find particularly noteworthy is the way the regulator knitted together all necessary elements to institutionalize a cohesive system in such a short span of time. For instance, a cadre of resolution professionals had to be created and trained, who are the linchpins in the process, acting as the conduit between the adjudicating authority, creditors, and the debtor. Their role and relevance are of utmost importance in guiding the committee of creditors in complying with the provisions of the code and in ensuring fairness throughout the resolution process. IBBI is rightfully focused on developing this profession as an institution through its regulatory oversight and well-designed capacity building measures. Further, we saw the government and the regulator effectively use what may be referred to as feedback loop to learn from experience and improvise accordingly to align the law to emerging needs, be it for protecting the interest of home buyers or coming up with pre-packaged insolvency resolution framework for MSMEs. The code has been amended in quick response to emerging issues and in line with changing market realities. This applies to regulations as well, which IBBI modifies based on stakeholder consultations. This openness, responsiveness, and flexibility is what all regulators must embed in their work to remain fit for purpose. As we know, in just about 3 years since the code came into force, it made a significant difference, catapulting India's ranking in the World Bank Ease of Doing Business in terms of resolving insolvency from the 136th to the 52nd position. The average time taken for resolution came down from 4.3 years to 1.6 years. The code has now been tested in many differing circumstances in a diverse range of sectors such as manufacturing, construction, real estate, retail, trade, hotels, electricity, transport, etc. A total of 5,636 CIRPs were commenced by the end of June 2022. Of these, 3,637 have been closed. Of the CIRPs closed, the CD was rescued in 934 cases. The code has been interpreted by the judiciary and jurisprudence has evolved, settling many issues faced during its implementation. One can say that it has solidified its position as a transformative legislation. Fueled by a huge unsatiated appetite for freedom to exit, the insolvency law is changing the way society perceives business failures as it becomes a reform by, for, and of stakeholders. Standing on the two critical pillars of transparency and credibility, the code and its implementation have continuously strived to build confidence among the creditors and the new management through an efficient bidding process. In the last 6 years, a lot of distance has been covered as part of the journey of IBC. When a law is enforced or an economic reform measure implemented, it is inevitable that some pitfalls would be identified along the way. It is in the interest of healthy evolution of a regulatory or legislative framework that any review, assessment or criticism of it is based on a set of objective parameters as well as its core tenets as opposed to broad perceptions. Like in the case of IBC, the discussions on haircuts must take place in light of the fact that IBC provides a market-driven mechanism to stakeholders for reorganization, and the resolution plan is approved by the committee of creditors in their commercial wisdom. The extent of the haircut may reflect the degree of discount the market demands. It's a function of the stage of stress at which company comes to IBC. If significant value deterioration has happened in the assets of the debtor when the resolution process is initiated, the right comparator for the resolution values should be the next logical outcome for the creditors, which is liquidation. It is incumbent upon the stakeholders to avail of the tool that IBC offers at the early days of stress before the value deteriorates significantly, and not as the last resort after exhausting all alternative avenues. Time is of the essence in effective resolution. Delays could be value destructive, and thus the code makes the resolution process time bound. However, meeting timelines with so many participants involved in the proceedings could be challenging. Without getting into the sources of delay and other implementation challenges, what can be said with certainty is that the government and the regulator are seized of all such issues. They are constantly in touch with stakeholders. The recent notification of IBBI announcing a performance-based pay structure for resolution professionals seeks to align with the objectives of all stakeholders, be it process-related, infrastructural, or substantive. We have all the reasons to believe that any issue that affects the efficacy of the code would be resolved with the same alacrity that we have seen in these 6 years. Ex-post evaluation is an integral part of credible and meaningful implementation of any law or regulation. However, we must not lose sight of the fact that economic regulations often make a difference by inducing behavioral change through incentives and disincentives. These outcomes may not be quantifiable but are most significant. In the case of IBC, the inevitable consequence of a resolution process is that it has instilled an increased sense of credit discipline, minimizing the incidence of default. As the Economic Survey 2021-22 observes, and I quote, "Distressed assets have a life cycle and their value gradually declines with time. The fact that a CD may change hands has changed the behavior of debtors. Thousands of debtors are resolving distress in the early stages, either when the default is imminent on receipt of a notice for repayment but before filing an application, or after filing the application but before its admission, and even after admission of the application, thus making best efforts to avoid consequences of the resolution process." Unquote. Thus, IBC is a changing debtor-creditor dynamics in as much as it allows for a more positive contribution by both in their respective roles. A transformation in debtors' credit behavior is being witnessed, and there have been rising instances of debtors coming forward to settle their debts on their own, even before admission of their cases in the National Company Law Tribunal, or immediately after filing of such applications. There is growing realization among debtors that they may lose control and management of their firm permanently as a result of resolution. The resolution provision under the code thus acts as a major credible deterrent for the debtors and existing promoters of the firm from operating their unit at low efficiency levels, draining the resources of the enterprise, underutilization, or misutilizing them. This is a remarkable achievement. I will mention here that at the Competition Commission, we gauge the effectiveness of enforcement of the competition law against the touchstone of behavioral changes the market participants pursuant to our decisions. In many cases, enterprises alter their long-standing practices to make them competition compliant soon after the Commission takes cognizance. Corporates today operate on a global landscape. Their businesses do not necessarily stop at national boundaries. Thus, economic regulations too now take into account the multi-jurisdictional nature of the issues. At CCI, we are increasingly focusing on international cooperation with our counterparts. In the current globalized economic setting, a strategic thrust of the Commission has been on forging strong and sustained partnerships with overseas competition agencies to facilitate knowledge exchange and cooperation in cross-border antitrust and combination cases. 9 MOUs have been signed by CCI with agencies in other jurisdictions. In the case of insolvency resolution, when multiple proceedings are on for the same corporation in different jurisdictions, The restructuring efforts in one jurisdiction will have a bearing on the other jurisdictions, requiring cross-jurisdictional cooperation. It would help to ensure that restructuring efforts are aligned and that the insolvencies are resolved efficaciously. I believe the government and the regulator are working towards it, and soon we will have a robust cross-border insolvency regime in India. The Indian economy has staged a sustained recovery post the pandemic. As we now look at placing the economy at a higher and inclusive growth path, it is critical that resources, enterprises and markets work at their full potential. It is imperative to enthuse the entrepreneurial spirit in the country and attract investments and cutting-edge technologies from across the globe. At the Competition Commission, we watch markets and competitive landscapes as they evolve across different sectors through both antitrust and combination cases. And I must say, we see exceptional dynamism, especially driven by the digital revolution. Entrepreneurial energy, aided by the power of digital computing technology and electronic commerce, is set to unlock tremendous growth potential for the economy. Entry of startups, for instance, is playing a particularly significant role in fueling competition, bringing greater diversity and choice of offerings. We currently have more than 100 unicorns, and many of them could become decacorns in the coming years. This trend is extremely promising for increased vitality of markets and thus must be encouraged in all possible ways. At the Commission, we are committed to ensuring that young entrepreneurs can enter markets without having to face strategic barriers erected by incumbent large players, and that the ground rules of competition are followed by all, so that these new entrants can operate on fair terms. To facilitate inorganic growth, the Green Channel was introduced in 2019 for automatic approval of combinations. This is the first of its kind trust-based system in the world where notifiable transactions having no overlaps, be it horizontal, vertical or complementary between the parties, are deemed approved upon filing. It aims to promote speedy, transparent and accountable merger review, striking a balance between facilitation and enforcement. IBC and IBBI, on the other hand, will continue to play a critical role in giving our young risk takers the comfort of rapid, simple and seamless resolution or exit in case of honest business failures. Fast-tracked insolvency proceedings for a wider pool of startups is a welcome move, which I believe would contribute significantly in providing an enabling business environment for the startup industry. A professional and institutionalized mechanism of exit reduces the emotional cost and stigma that has been traditionally attached to business failures and insolvency. Suiting the new economic milieu, the IBC projects its exit as a resolvable fallout of market competition and provides a rather graceful exit for entrepreneurs. We have entered the Amrit Kal and embarked on the journey of a new India for the next 25 years. As our Honorable Prime Minister has said, and I quote, "During Amrit Kal, the nation will move towards attaining resolutions made for Atmanirbhar Bharat. Today, we are working to strengthen good governance, pro-people, proactive governance," unquote. To fulfill the goals set for the nation and to turn our people's aspirations into reality, we regulators have to think comprehensively, be ahead of time, act as facilitators, break silos and embed our working in the larger socio-economic policy milieu. In their book, Why Nations Failed, Acemoglu and Robinson show that the decisive role for development of countries is played by institutions. Our systems must therefore stand on robust and inclusive institutional mechanisms supported by all relevant stakeholders. IBBI has started its journey remarkably well and has rightfully focused on institutional underpinnings, creating the foundation for a strong and responsive insolvency regime in the country. As they say, well begun is half done. The code is still at its nascent stage. The work related to individual insolvency, cross-border insolvency, group insolvency and valuation profession has begun in right earnest. As the process matures in the days to come, the insolvency regime is expected to impact not only ease of doing business but also overall economic growth. Like everything else, this reform too has to keep evolving. That means only one thing: embracing the future. On this 6th annual day of IBBI, I wish the regulator a fruitful journey ahead and hope, as part of stakeholders of this unique code, we all can realize its true potential. Thank you once again for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank Thank you, sir, for highlighting the unique features of the code and emphasizing on how IBBI has been responsive to the emerging market realities. As rightly said, other financial sector regulators and judiciary have always backed the noble cause of the code through their timely interventions and facilitations. Ladies and gentlemen, as a part of our annual day lecture series, we are indeed grateful to have with us today Shri Ramalingam Sudhakar, President, National Company Law Tribunal, to deliver this evening's second lecture. Sir is serving as President NCLT since November 2021. He has earlier served as Chief Justice of High Court of Manipur and Jammu and Kashmir. Sir practiced in all branches of law with particular emphasis on customs, central excise and sales tax law. In his illustrious career, Sir undertook several administrative duties besides discharging his judicial work. Sir has been instrumental in implementation of e-courts project and other facilities to the High Court of Jammu and Kashmir and its district courts. We extend a hearty welcome to you, sir, and request you to kindly address the audience.
A warm good evening to all of you. Respected Honorable Minister for Finance and Corporate Affairs, the Chairperson of IBBI, Shri Ravi Mittal, Shri Ashok Kumar Gupta, Chairperson, Competitive Commission of India, Shri Jayanti Prasad, whole-time member of IBBI, my distinguished members of NCLT, members of the Office of the NCLT, offices of IBBI, the regulatory body, members of the legal fraternity, the representatives of the Insolvency Professionals, ladies and gentlemen. The Mother Earth is the Ministry of Finance and Corporate Affairs. From this, the IBC has come up as a tree as much as the Competition Commission. My dear brother was speaking about the role of IBC, but I also would like to say that while he deals with competitiveness in the market and the commission, the role of the commission in that is one aspect, whereas in IBC, which is our tree, where we blossom as an adjudicating authority, I would say we do the resolution process of healing and empowering. It is appropriate that the Honorable Finance Minister is with us on this day when we celebrate the 6th annual day of IBBI. We have gathered here to look back and reflect on the significant growth of insolvency ecosystem in India under IBC regime and reaffirm our pledge to promote, foster and enable IBC to succeed. Such success will reflect the improvement in quality of corporate governance and show the results that the Ministry of Finance and Corporate Affairs looks forward. Before the advent of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016, there were several laws which provided for restructuring of debt by virtue of this SIC Industrial Companies Act, Recovery of Debts Due to Bank and Financial Institution Act, Securitization Act, and there was intense legal debate on the question which act was to take precedence over the other. Similarly, laws such as Presidency Town Insolvency Act 1909 and the Provincial Insolvency Act 1920 to regulate insolvency resolution for individuals found no remarkable change in resolution of insolvency as required. The reason behind this is multiple statutes giving rise to various intersecting rights and liabilities, as well as multiple fora for purpose of adjudication, which did not address the issue of insolvency and bankruptcy as required. The disjointed statutes, clash of jurisdiction, and extraordinary timelines gave rise to resentment from all quarters, and the need to formulate a workable bankruptcy law became imperative to overcome the cost and time consumed by earlier laws. The statement and objects of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code indicates that the existing framework of insolvency and bankruptcy law was inadequate and ineffective and resulted in undue delays in resolution and erosion of value of assets. The code was proposed with the objective of consolidating and amending the laws relating to insolvency resolution of corporate persons, partnership firms, and individuals in a time-bound manner for maximizing the value of assets in distress. The code provides for designation of NCLT and Debt Recovery Tribunal as adjudicating authorities for corporate persons, firms, and individuals for resolution of insolvency, liquidation, and bankruptcy. As we all know, the preamble of the code of the IBC is to consolidate and amend the laws relating to reorganization and insolvency resolution of corporate persons, partnership firms, and individuals. The other important factors is to implement in time, maximize the value of assets, increase and stimulate availability of credit, promote entrepreneurship, balance the interest of stakeholders, including the priority of payment to government dues, which of course now is a hot debated issue. IBC is an important reform in our country in corporate governance. The effective operationalization of IBC will improve India's ranking in the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Index. As adjudicator of issues arising from IBC, NCLT represents one of the most significant limbs of insolvency law. The approach of NCLT will have a far-reaching bearing on the outcome of IBC. The exigencies of the insolvency law and the economic goals required the adjudication of issues arising out of proceedings to be resolved by NCLT not on the basis of technical questions of law, but after considering the policy intention and unique principles on which the law is based. 6 years of IBC, the way forward. IBC places considerable responsibility on IBBI in its role as a regulator as well as for carrying out other functions. The legislature has chosen IBBI as to regulate the insolvency professional. The IBBI has regulatory oversight over professionals and related institutions. The insolvency professionals, professional agencies, professional entities, and information utility. Further, IBBI has the responsibility to make regulations and guidelines on the matter relating to insolvency process like CRP, prepackage, corporate liquidation process, voluntary liquidation process, fresh start process, individual insolvency resolution process, individual bankruptcy process. Timeline and speed in resolution is the essence of the process under the code. The IBBI being a creation of a code prescribes timelines from day one. It was established in 1st of October 2016 and commenced corporate insolvency by December 2016. The immediate task included market volunteering to set up IPAs, individuals with the right caliber to control the IPAs and seek registration with IBBI as IPs. Regulations relating to IPs, IPAs and CIRP and liquidation process to be in place. Process to spread the message of the code and make the stakeholders aware of the roles. And last but not the least, IBBI to capacity build the stakeholders and work on this. With the active support of the government, IBBI delivered all this, enabling rollout of corporate insolvency possible in 1st of December 2016. Promptitude and speed has been a part of its work culture since then, and it is continuing despite all turbulence during the long and gloomy COVID days. IBBI is different from other regulators as it does not only it develops and regulate insolvency professional, but it also specifies the regulations to be followed by the IPs in the market for transaction and regulate the market where IP serves. It sets standards to ensure quality of service and endeavors to provide competitive environment. Some examples of statutory features that makes IBBI distinct from other regulators are: the code requires IBBI to specify the mechanism for issuing regulations, including conduct of public consultation process. The code provides that the IBBI may constitute advisory committees in accordance with the regulation. The code has several provisions such as requiring IBBI to publish information, data, research studies and other information, maintain websites and such other universally accessible repositories of electronic information, collect and maintain records relating to insolvency and bankruptcy cases, and disseminate information relating to such cases. This is not exhaustive. Achievements of IBBI. The regulator IBBI has been proactively trying to reduce the delay in insolvency process and improve the resolution value. The new introduced amendments in CIRP liquidation regulations are a testament to the same. Information available remained a challenge to the resolution applicants. The board has made changes in the content of the information memorandum, improving it in the process, changed expression of interest format, and now copy of avoidance applications is also made available to the resolution applicants. As regards value maximization, regulation has been amended to enable market efforts by formulating a strategy under CIRP. But perhaps the biggest change is enabling of resolution of functional and operational parts of CD. It comforted stakeholders to enable resolution plans which contain measures for sale of part of assets of the CD. The board has been forthcoming in enabling a variety of permutations and combinations so that the resolution is achieved and must be commended for the same. The board has also been proactive in improving clarity in CIRP activities. An IP is now required to communicate to all creditors of the company regarding initiation of insolvency. This will enable the process to be more streamlined and further strengthen information availability to stakeholders regarding initiation. It is widely recognized that IPs are the fulcrum around which the entire process. It was thus very important to nudge and incentivize IPs for timely resolution and also ensure value maximization. The board has now proposed a fee structure which is like a performance-linked initiative fee for timely resolution and linked it to resolution value. This will be a great invisible nudge to the IPs to complete process faster and bring value to the table. In liquidation, the amendments have enlarged the scope of stakeholders consultation committee and allow COC to function SEC for the first 60 days of liquidation process. The amendments also provide for provisions for replacement of liquidator. As regards reducing delays, timelines have been introduced for auction events, and board has also proposed auction through auction portals which will enable soon. The newly introduced amendments place greater reliance on technology, and the IM now has provision for geotagging of assets. Going forward, continued reliance should be placed on technology by stakeholders to enable faster completion of the process and prevent value destruction. Challenges faced by IBBI and its outcome. There have been concerns emanating from integration of powers in regulators. Highlighting the concern, the Supreme Court in the matter of Clariant International observed that integration of power by vesting legislative, executive and judicial power in the same body in future may raise several public law concerns, as the principle of control of one body over the other was a central theme underlying the doctrine of separation of powers. Recognizing the concern, the IBBI structured itself within 100 days of its existence into three separate wings, namely Research and Regulation Wing, Registration and Monitoring Wing, Administrative Law Wing, and each of these wings are headed by separate whole-time members to minimize intra-institutional and public law concern. The kind of proactivity engaged by IBBI has with stakeholders through hundreds of roundtables every year has been unprecedented in many ways. The active role of the stakeholders have played its commendable turning out to be most valuable resource of the IBC ecosystem. IBC is a reform for all the stakeholders by the initiative of Ministry of Finance and Corporate Affairs, Government of India. Further, the statutory process of making regulations and organization structure of quasi-legislative, executive and quasi-judicial wing component under the IBC help build credibility to the regulatory body IBBI. From my interaction with IBBI, its chairperson, executive directors, I can say with certainty that IBBI is constantly learning and upgrading its skills. Every interaction with the stakeholders improves the insolvency ecosystem, bringing new learning and understanding. IBBI is also making efforts to encourage research in insolvency law to help make better and informed policy decision going forward. We at NCLT is one such prime participant in this process evolution. Concluding, the achievement of IBC in this short span of 6 years have been noteworthy and considerable. It is reflected in the improving ranking of our country on ease of doing business. The code has been heralded as a game-changing legislation, and rightly so. The code has come a long way since its enactment in 2016, meandering through myriads of challenges, and in the process it has won many accolades. In short period of its operation and functioning, the consolidation of the statute was closely synchronized with the development of insolvency ecosystem. The speed with which the entire ecosystem was geared up has been astounding. The primary objective of the code is rescuing firms from distress, which is visible. At this juncture, it will be my duty to place the proof of efficacy of IBC in the framework of NCLT in the IBC regime. I would like to draw the attention of Honorable Minister for Finance and Corporate Affairs. The status of case with NCLT in respect of section 7, 9 and 10 and 94 and 95 of IBC cases are as follows. The data which already provided, we have already got it uploaded in the system, but I will only say this. The percentage of adjudication of cases under section 7 is 79.86%. Section 9 petition, the percentage of adjudication is 83.72%. Section 10 cases is 93.94%, and the average of 7, 9 and 10 cases adjudicated by this authority is in the range of 85.4%. The total amount involved in the cases disposed of under section 7, 9 and 10 settled before the admission, that is after a preliminary hearing, is 7,21,000 crores. Settled after admission under section 12A, 24,601 crores. Resolution plan approved 3,03,381 crores, and the total is 10,49,265 crores. Amount realized under section 43, 45, 49, 60, 66 during liquidation, section 94 and 95 are not included in this figure. Insofar as it may be not relevant, but however, I'll just for the sake of completion, because we are also donning the role of company court. So, insofar as section 230 and 232 cases, which is basically in corporate line, merger and acquisitions, out of the number of cases filed, pending and disposed of, our target achievement is 93.29%. I am sharing the above data to indicate that the scope of adjudication under IBC has been rewarding and result oriented. This will dispel murmurs at different quarters that all is not well with NCLT. This is despite several apparent and noticeable shortcomings like periodical reduction of members, presently 28 out of 63, and infrastructure which requires to be improved in metropolitan cities like Bombay, Delhi, Chennai and Calcutta, and of course staff which are still in the anvil before I took charge on November 2021. This, however, does not deter us from our commitment to the code and the role of adjudicator in effective corporate governance. I thank all the past president members and the present members for their active role in coordination with the IBBI in achieving this target. I cannot take it for myself. I speak for the NCLT as a whole. The Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code thus emerged as a life-sustaining legislation which provides a new lifeline to rescue company distress. On this 6th annual day of IBBI, I wish the board the very best in its endeavor to realize the true potential of the code and commend it with its contribution towards realizing the Ministry of Corporate Affairs' objective of improving corporate governance and ease of doing business pan-India and globally. The dream of becoming a $1 trillion economy envisaged by the Ministry of Finance can be achieved only if all the stakeholders show their commitment in implementing IBC. On behalf of NCLT, we assure the Honorable Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs our commitment towards the objective of the code and seek Government of India's cooperation for effective functioning of the adjudicating body. My best wishes to the Chairman and members of the IBBI board. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for highlighting the active role of judiciary in the key achievements of the code and also applauding the constant efforts of government and IBBI to deal with the critical issues. Ladies and gentlemen, on the occasion of our annual day, we would like to take this opportunity to release IBBI's annual publication titled IBC, Idea, Impressions and Implementation. This is the 4th annual publication of IBBI to be released on today's momentous occasion of completion of 6 years of establishment of the IBBI. May I request our esteemed dignitaries on the dais to kindly do the honors and unveil the publication. Ladies and gentlemen, this publication presents 38 thought-provoking articles by eminent persons who have been instrumental in the exceptional journey of the code. Our heartfelt thanks to all the authors for taking their precious time out to pen down their valuable experiences and insights in this publication. This publication captures the progress of the code, its institutions, the outcome of the code, legal developments, impact of the code, and the potential reforms that are in the pipeline. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with immense pleasure that I now announce our most awaited session of the event, that is addressed by our Honorable Chief Guest for the occasion, Honorable Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs, Shrimati Nirmala Sitharamanji. Madam is shepherding our Honorable Prime Minister's vision to make India a $5 trillion economy. Respected Madam has successfully steered Indian economy during difficult pandemic times, and due to her path-breaking efforts, India has today become the fastest growing economy in the world. An exquisite orator, economist, political figure and social worker, ma'am is at the forefront of leading economic reforms in our country. Ma'am, we are truly honored by your presence here today. May I request you to kindly address the audience.
Good evening, and it gives me immense pleasure to be here on the 6th anniversary of Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India. We've also heard very well considered talk being delivered both by the Competition Commission of India's chairperson and also retired Chief Justice, who now is the President of the NCLT. So the substance of what has been aimed at through the IBC and the objective of setting up IBBI have all been very clearly recalled. The extensive nature of both their talks have actually gone into the nitty-gritties of what has been achieved, but more importantly, what is before us to sort out and to keep the momentum up, because it's not for me so much here to remind ourselves about how when the IBC was brought in, and how in 2016 when IBBI was equally set up, the mood and the sentiment that India is looking forward to having a very reformed system of governance, particularly of companies and insolvency, and also dealing with bankruptcy and looking at very graceful exits that we can offer for companies, and that it is no longer a taboo to talk about company closures. Going for liquidation could be a good commercial decision, and it's not something which we'll have to frown or look down upon. And that kind of a euphoria was created because of this very progressive law which the Parliament chose to pass, and also by the setting up of the IBBI. Speedily, equally, a lot of energy and time, and also considered way of strengthening the capacities by training the resolution professionals, also giving them good capacity building, and having some trainers to have resolution professionals trained by, have all been well thought through and executed as well. So in a way, 6 years, but the work much more than 6 years has been achieved within the 6 years itself. So I, to that extent, give great credit to the work of IBBI and all those professionals who are very closely linked to this whole process, and also to the institution that IBBI is. It's not going to be independently possible for an institution which is just 6 years old to achieve it, unless the field formations, as they call in income tax and CBDT, the formations outside, who have not got direct link with the board itself, but who yet are the wheels which lead the process, are also in place and are also energetic about moving this whole thing forward. So as I commend the IBBI, I also extend my commiserations to all those who have actively engaged to process this whole thing in a very efficient and also in a thoughtful way. So whilst I'm very happy to start saying about the way in which the progress that has been achieved in the last 6 years have been recalled, it's also time for us to put in place a bit of systems for ourselves to understand how to handle the challenges which are before us. Whilst I say that, and whilst all of us do remember 6 years is not a very big set of years to have achieved big things, it's also useful for us to remember that the birth of IBC and also IBBI in India was pre-COVID. Birth of IBC and IBBI in India is pre-COVID, but also facing a world which has got very different yardsticks now for companies, global value chains, and also the global disruptions which are happening, as a result of which I think many of the companies are facing newer situations. They're solvent, they're running business, they're going well, but the global disruptions, which have nothing to do with us in this country, which have nothing to do with our legal framework or the existing institutional mechanisms which help you, but the disruptions which these global developments are having on us is also resulting in a situation where many of the banks themselves are wondering how they're going to take it forward in terms of their clients and the distress some of their clients have started feeling. So in that process, I was very it was soothing to my ears to hear both the speakers speak about early resolution, early highlighting of distress, and therefore because distress gets highlighted earlier, seeking help is something which should become a part and parcel of our mindsets from now. I think the world is definitely looking at greater disruptions. greater stress, greater exogenous factors which are playing on our company's health. I'm not speaking of a doomsday. I'm only speaking of those companies which few and far between, but can experience such a situation, for whom a timely and early detection and early help would help us to know how to handle it if it were to be a few more companies. So we have to keep our ears very close to the ground to know what's actually developing as a result of the global developments, because many of these companies are linked to their global peers or group companies or even small MSMEs which have depended for some technology or for some small amount of equity which has come from companies which are abroad. So I would now say 6 years your activity has been on one plank minus 2 years. 2 years your activities have been only to watch that there are no companies falling off the cliff in spite of the government enabling a moratorium. And post the moratorium period, also to understand what is the kind of impact just the COVID and COVID related things have happened on these companies. But post this moratorium, post the 4 years plus 2 years, is when now you have to start feeling what are the newer developments which are happening, what are the vibrations from the global developments and disruptions which are happening, which we need to take on board so that the process is efficient, systems are nimble, and therefore we would be able to keep our flock together, as it were, give them the maximum value. I know the principle which governs IBC is very much underlining the fact that we are not looking at liquidation, we are not omitting liquidation, but we are more looking at keeping companies as ongoing concerns. Now, if they have to be kept up as concerns which are going, you have to have greater sensitivity about these specific nuances which come into their existence. And therefore, I was quite pleased to hear that realizing value, making sure that there is no erosion in value, maximizing value, have all been repeated by these two eminent speakers. Now that's exactly where I expect the resolution professionals also to be able to constantly keep that radar alive. Delay is the first big hurdle. Delay is the first big culprit in erosion of value. The greater the delay, you can be sure the value is junked. So value realization, maximization of value starts from the day one. And recent reports in the media, however true or untrue, of any delay at admission stage. I was very grateful, I feel grateful that the President, NCLT, has even given data before us, which should reassure, let's say, the media and also those of us who still wonder if there is an element of delay even at the admission stage. That's been periodically reported, that the entire process of IBC is slowing down. The entire process of NCLT is slowing down. Now, I'm grateful that the President has shown his figures to say, no, it's not slowing down. There could have been glitches in between, but here I go, I give you in public the figures. So there is that narrative which goes on in a section that possibly IBC is also losing its shine because of these kind of glitches. I want all of us equally, me included in this, to be conscious that we can't afford to have IBC lose its sheen, and whatever it takes for all of us to keep it as sparkling as it was when we brought it in is all our duty. We can't afford, especially when Honorable Prime Minister is looking at next 25 years as year and if anything decade, and if anything like many of the business leaders have observed, it should be a century for India. It can't obviously treat its companies, particularly those in distress, with indifference or even with delay. And therefore, I would appeal, taking this context in which is before me, that it is for all of us to see how best constantly we keep the IBBI on its toes, so that they are conscious that where they have to bring in interventions, they will have to bring in. This is a very critical area for India's economy. We can't afford to have liquidation suffer or early stress warnings which are coming up kept unnoticed. So I would think all of us, because we are talking to stakeholders are here, stakeholders are before me, we are part of all of us are part of the stakeholders group, we need to be active on this. Similarly, there have also been quite a lot of concern expressed about the resolution professionals, their ability to rise to the occasion of the cases that they are dealing with, because not all cases have the same stature. Some of them are very complex cases. Some of them are complex cases and also of companies which are systemically important. You may ask me, we've heard of systemically important being an expression used for banks, but not so much for companies. I'm using it in a loose fashion. There are companies which are very critical to the economy. And if they go down, and if resolution is not rising to the occasion to keep the value maximization in mind, speedy resolution in mind, and also give good value, the resolution value should stand out, that nobody can point a finger, saying, oh my God, look at the banks, they have taken this kind of a haircut. Is that acceptable? And I'm not saying it out of, hearsay. Every time IBC has gone through amendments, I stand up each time in the parliament to speak about why these amendments are important and that we're keeping ahead of times or keeping abreast of the developments which the companies want us to take into cognizance. Every time I stand up and speak, the first question is, haven't banks been given a raw deal? Haven't they been given a very high haircut? Is this what your IBC can do? These are questions of honorable parliament members, and I'm duty bound to answer all of them. And it is in this context I'm saying resolution professionals, their attempts to maximize value, their attempts to give good resolution package matter every bit. I cannot afford to say, sorry, 95% haircut for the bank is the best resolution I can give you. Impossible. Is that what we are capable of? There are times when, the case could be so pathetic that nobody is coming forward to take the company, or even if you go for liquidation, that's the junk value you will get. But can this become the feature of IBC? Can this be the feature of our resolution professionals' abilities? So I leave it as a thought behind. I leave it as a thought before you. It is important that our resolution professionals are given enough such skills that they understand the complexity of the companies that they are dealing with. They understand the nature of resolutions which have got to be given. And it is important that if one resolution professional himself or herself cannot have that grasp, they should be assisted with many others. And I'm glad that I read it in the newspapers this morning when I saw it is already now permitted by the IBBI for institutional solutions, for resolution professional institutions to come up with solutions. So by that very feature, I would understand that complex cases can now be given to them with the benefit of multiple experts giving them the advice. So that is a very good step. Equally, resolution professionals will have to be periodically brushed up on skills, given upskilling benefits. One other area in which I would raise a flag, not so much for criticizing, not so much for assessing the performance, but the buoyancy with which you had IBC cases being taken up initially as soon as it was brought in. probably this a comparable or a similar buoyancy I couldn't see on the pre-package for the MSMEs. But I know when we were really processing that and getting it to the Parliament and for having it pass through, the enthusiasm with which we said, oh, this is the best solution for MSMEs, nothing better. We brought it in with a lot of stakeholder consultations and everything else. Now after that, COVID, all right, after that, 21, now after that, I still find that the wings which are so necessary for this bird to fly are still not there for it. The pre-packaged are still not taken off. I would appeal to all of you, I would appeal to the learned members who are on the dais to look into as to what is holding it back. What is actually pulling it down? Why can't it take off? Why won't the MSMEs look at the pre-package that we've given as a good option? What's holding them back from going into it? I was about to suggest, even as I was coming here, that IBBI should now also look into the researched materials which talk about the experience of IBC in India, similar such laws in other countries, what have actually enabled some process and what are the learnings that we can take from elsewhere. But I'm so happy, in a way I didn't know about it. IBBI seems to have read my mind, but well in advance, and the book that has come out today of ideas, impressions, and also of implementation is just the thing we need. All of us do need to have, I was quickly looking at it, very good experts have written a lot of well thought out pieces. Some of the names stand out, and I'm sure that is something which is a good step forward on this 6th anniversary of IBBI. It's a good thought out step. It will be of great help for all of us. With these words, I thank the IBBI for having given me some time to share my thoughts. I commend once again the IBBI's good work. It's equally encouraging to see the other equally important regulator, the Competition Commission, to also be here. I've had quite a few comments to make of the Competition Commission, and I know the chairperson, Mr. Gupta, has been very generous to receive my comments without thinking that I'm being, very nitpicking in my comments. But actually, Competition Commission has also thought out of the box and done quite a lot of good work in coming up with a lot of proactive studies which have helped us to speed up the Competition Commission's abilities. So this is going to be an era for companies, for entrepreneurship, for building Indian economy, for a lot of flow of funds which are going to come into India. Government is actively engaging with sovereign funds, with big funders who can come into India and invest in India. You can already see the production linked to incentive scheme, and schemes such as that have already attracted a lot of investors to come to India and invest in India. You are going to have a lot of mergers and acquisitions, I think. I'm not giving any indications. Media, I hope, is not going to misquote me on this. Mergers and acquisitions are also going to happen because it's an economy which is seen as the sweet spot world over, because we've achieved a certain growth and are standing out as the fastest growing economy in the world. And therefore you're going to have a lot of investor interest. You would have noticed that till July you had a lot of FPI flowing outside of India, going away from India, and people thought, oh, that's an indication economy is going to be in distress. And as much or even more have started coming back from July, from August, let us say, until September. More than 70% of all of whom went out have equally come back. And our inflation is in manageable level. Yesterday, RBI's announcements have also sent a very positive message in the market. So it's going to be like, unlike any other times in India, for economy, business, and also for investments and manufacturing, and also in service sector. It requires very robust regulators. It requires robust enablers like the IBBI, which has dual function. And it requires you and many more like you to be out there to help the systems to function. So I would appeal to all of you that you have an era of robust activity which is before us, robust economic activity, and as a result we also need a lot of good professionals which are going to help the economy understand how liquidation, how insolvency, how bankruptcy, all of them can be handled where required in a very efficient and timely manner. So thank you for being here, and thank you for inviting me, and I wish IBBI all the very best.
Thank you, ma'am, for taking us through the journey of the code and stressing on how timely resolution of stress and value maximization are interlinked, and stressing on how resolution professionals need to remain conscious of this fact while taking over the distressed entity. Thank you, ma'am, for gracing this event. Ladies and gentlemen, may I now request our whole team member, Shri Jayanti Prasad ji, to propose the vote of thanks.
Honorable Union Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji. Honorable President NCLT, Chief Justice Retired Shri Ramalingam Sudhakar ji. Respected Chairperson, Competition Commission of India, Shri Ashok Kumar Gupta ji. Respected Chairperson, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, Shri Ravi Mittal sir. Present and former governing board members of IBBI, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed my proud privilege to propose a formal vote of thanks to all the dignitaries who have joined us in celebrating our 6th annual day. The event has been a befitting tribute to the remarkable journey of a landmark legislation IBC and the 6 years of establishment of IBBI. We at IBBI are immensely grateful to the Honorable Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs, Madam Sitharaman ji, for sparing her valuable time and having consented to preside over today's function as the chief guest, despite her extremely busy schedule. All of us at IBBI and all the stakeholders of the IBC ecosystem are enthused by your inspiring speech and gracious presence, Madam. As the Honorable Minister has said, the government is committed to improve the timelines and outcomes in terms of value maximization. Honorable Madam, we remain continually committed proactively to respond to emerging market challenges and situations by way of proposing new amendments to the code and allied regulations. We further assure you, Madam, that as a regulator, we will leave no stone unturned in further streamlining the processes to increase the efficacy of IBC in achieving its intended objectives. We look forward to your continued vision and directions on IBC, ma'am. We are also very fortunate to have amongst us two distinguished and highly accomplished personalities who delivered the annual day lecture today. We are grateful that in his keynote address, Honorable President NCLT, Justice Ramalingam Sudhakar sir, has delved into the finer aspects and critical modalities of implementation of this law and has mapped the course of IBC in future times. Our sincere thanks to the Chairperson, Competition Commission of India, Shri Ashok Kumar Gupta ji, for his valuable insights into the code and the critical interplay with the competition law of the country and delicate balance between the regulatory governance and market freedom. We are also extremely grateful to all the authors, in fact 38 of them, who have contributed their perceptive articles which enabled us to bring the research publication, annual date publication of 2022. We are sure that today's lectures and Madam's directions will generate fresh ideas, insights and solutions to the challenges and opportunities in India's evolving insolvency and bankruptcy space. I must express my deep gratitude to our chairperson, Shri Ravi Mittal sir, for providing proactive leadership and constant guidance, which has led to increased regulatory reforms in recent times, essentially to address the issues of delays and haircuts in the resolution process. My sincere thanks to our governing board members and distinguished guests present here, and all other stakeholders also, all the IPAs and IPs and the RVOs and RVs who have physically joined us here and as well as online. Also, my special thanks to my own colleagues in IBBI, all the officers and staff who have really worked with dedication and hard work to make this program a success. I am also thankful to the members of the media who are present here for covering this annual day function. I would also like to thank all the authorities for extending their cooperation in hosting our annual day at this venue. अंत में मैं सबका धन्यवाद पुनः करना चाहूँगा. धन्यवाद. जय हिंद.
Thank you, sir. We once again thank our esteemed guests on the dais for sparing their valuable time. Ladies and gentlemen, may I now request all of you to kindly join us for high tea. Thank you.